Senator Sinema is recognized from her office.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today. Last year I worked with my friend Republican Senator Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming to co-found the bipartisan Senate Financial Innovation Caucus. The caucus strives to highlight responsible financial innovation in the U.S. financial system and how financial technologies can make markets more inclusive, safe, and prosperous for Arizonans and all Americans. Arizonans are optimistic about blockchain technology, and they're interested in how the technology can make their lives easier. But as my friend and hero, Senator John McCain, would put it, Arizonans have no patience for hucksters, those who are looking to rip off everyday people to make a quick buck. When Congress fails to do its job and provide for a thoughtful, clear, and strong regulatory framework for blockchain technology and its financial use cases, it's not just entrepreneurs that lose, it's everyday Arizona investors who have no idea what to expect from a business or from their government. We have enough uncertainty in the world as it is. People are tired of the chaos. So we need to provide safeguards and information to investors in this space so they can make informed financial decisions for themselves and their families. So Ms. Lubin, thank you for being here today. Your organization, NASA, has conducted a survey for several years and found that investments tied to digital assets are a top threat to investors. This space is basically unregulated. At a basic level, can you tell me why unregulated investment spaces are threats to retail investors?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. When the investment area isn't regulated, that means we don't have the ability, first of all, to be a gatekeeper to see those offerings before they're sold, and investors don't have access to the information that they need to make an informed investment decision. So they won't get the typical disclosure that you get with a regulated offering or an offering in the public market that says these are the things you need to think about. These are the risk factors. This is how you're expected to make money. There isn't transparency, and that, frankly, is our concern when you're dealing with the public versus the private market, that there isn't a way to look into that market and for investors to get adequate disclosure, and frankly, for the market to get adequate disclosure so they could affect the pricing. So when these kinds of investments end up in the private market, there's not transparency, there's not liquidity, and people, investors really do not understand what's going on with their investment the way they would in the public reporting market where you get quarterly and annual reporting.
Thank you. So let's talk about the harm that a lack of regulatory clarity is causing consumers. We recently saw that Celsius, a crypto lender that made some splashy promises about being superior traditional bank lender, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Prior to doing so, Celsius had suspended the ability for customers to access their holdings, which effectively trapped consumers in place. Consumers who utilize Celsius are panicked because they rightfully believe that the Chapter 11 filing will free Celsius of its obligations to make good on its promises to consumers, costing them thousands or even their life savings. Now, Ms. Lubin, many of these consumers may be considered unsecured creditors in a bankruptcy proceeding. Given the cash shortfall that Celsius has publicly reported, are they right to be worried?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. I think the investors are very appropriately concerned. Some of our states, and NASA now is working on a piece, an investor education piece that will be helpful for investors so they understand what they might be facing with a company and a platform that files bankruptcy and what their options might be in the bankruptcy case. So it is appropriate for them to be concerned, and it's also appropriate for we as regulators to try and assist those investors in figuring out what their options are as they move forward.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Walsh, thank you for being here. From a financial education standpoint, what role could easy-to-understand consumer disclosures and a consistent regulatory framework play in reducing the instances of fraud and financial abuse in crypto and securities markets?
Senator, thank you for that question. Fundamentally, there are, multiple pillars of regulation, examinations, enforcement, and education. And so, there, to the extent that there is clarity in the disclosure about the disclosure obligations that crypto and digital asset providers are making, that will assist consumer knowledge, because not only is that information absorbed by consumers, but it is also absorbed by the market itself. And it's important that we have transparent information available about companies so that investors and any intermediaries that might be guiding them are able to make fully informed decisions. And investor education is a complementary tool to the disclosure that regulation requires. And so, we work collaboratively with our fellow state securities regulators, with the Securities and Exchange Commission, many other federal agencies, and a network of national nonprofits to get the word out as widely as we can about the tactics that con criminals are using to separate people from their money, including in the digital asset space.
Well, thank you, Ms. Walsh. Consumers are angry, confused, and frustrated. MarketWatch reported that one customer now has less than $1,000 left in a checking account to support his family after Celsius froze all withdrawals. Another lost his farm, and his family was left homeless. These are real losses. And while losses are a real risk in any type of investing, losses at this scale to consumers who may not have understood what they were getting into is a failure in governance and a failure in policy. We've got to hold hucksters accountable and strive to do better. And let's be honest, Celsius is far from the only recent failure in our crypto markets. These companies built businesses predicated on transparency and accountability. But for too many Arizonans, the experience with these businesses no longer feels transparent or accountable. So we have to find ways to repair and restore that trust while continuing to spur innovation and to create opportunity. Earlier this week, I introduced the Virtual Currency Tax Fairness Act with my friend Senator Toomey. This common sense and bipartisan legislation provides much needed clarity for everyday transactions with digital assets. It creates a de minimis exception of just $50, much like we have for foreign currencies, to ensure that Arizonans aren't caught having to pay a surprise capital gains tax when they're just trying to buy a cup of coffee with their crypto. But so I'm hopeful that our legislation and other conversations that Congress is having on regulation of stablecoins and other important subjects can result in new laws that protect consumers from scams and, importantly, provide the certainty that innovators need to build the next big thing. So I'm looking forward to us getting to work. And thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you